Back here at XL Energy Center, Michael Russo from The Athletic filling in for Dan Barrero on this just frigid Friday here in the Twin Cities. And Kevin Fallness, taking over his very nicely smelling studio. Got the wonderful candle going. Really always appreciate that every time I'm here. And really happy to be joined by somebody that Wild fans will get to know more and more and more, even though they really should know him now, but some beat writer wasn't doing his job since 2009 to profile this man. But he has done absolutely everything in this organization for every GM that's ever worked for the Wild. Started as a pro scout for 10 years, then director of pro scouting, then director of player personnel. Now in his first year as assistant general manager, and he's from the Boston University contingent that included John Hines, Mike Greer, and his college roommate, Chris Drury. Chris Kelleher, how are you?
I'm good, Michael. How are you doing?
Good. I appreciate you joining, and I know that you've been running around I know that as a pro scout, and that is still your big job with the Wild. You know, you go to games all the time for your day job, which is the Minnesota Wild. But really, for the last 3 months as well, you've been running around for your other job as the right-hand man for Bill Guerin for USA Hockey, your director of player personnel there, with also his assistant general managers, Tom Fitzgerald, Bill Zito, and Chris Drury, your college roommate. But you've picked yourselves a really quality Four Nations team that I know a lot of people are really excited about going into this February tournament in Montreal and Boston. But you've come up with a heck of a roster. And how excited are you for this tournament, and how good do you think you can be?
Yeah, we're very excited. There was a lot of hard decisions, which I think is great for, the state of hockey in the United States. I mean, there's so many players that you could almost pick two teams, right? So it kind of got down to some of the guys. There was a lot of hard decisions, but it's really exciting. I think we've been working on it since the summer, and then to have it when it was finally announced, it was almost like it was just like a sigh of relief, like it was really exciting, but it was like a sigh of relief. So, and now we continue. Hopefully the roster we put out there is the one that we show up on February 12th, but who knows if that happens with injuries or whatever it may be. So we're still, we're still out there. I'm watching a lot of games, so I'm still watching the guys that we've talked about before or might be on the bubble or may need to replace. So it's just, it's really exciting. I think it's going to be awesome, the hockey. A lot of people will say our team is, looks great on paper. But I mean, you look at Canada, you look at Finland, Sweden, they're all good. These are the best players in the world. So just because we may be one of the deepest on paper, it doesn't mean necessarily during the tournament. You gotta play the games. So I think it's going to be incredible hockey. I think the fans are going to love it. I'm just really excited.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, Jack Hughes and Brady Tkachuk, they got the phone calls from Tom Fitzgerald. Brady Tkachuk and Matthew are actually Tom's cousins. And then Jack Hughes obviously plays for the Devils. Bill Guerin called everybody else on Thanksgiving Day except for one person, and that was Zach Werenski, because Zach found out a couple days before this. And tell that story, because you were part of it in Columbus scouting the Blue Jackets.
Yeah. It was it's kind of great the way it happened, and it kind of happened by chance. So Billy and I went there to watch Zach, really. He's been playing so well, and so anyways, we let's go watch him in person. So we did, and then after we went out for dinner, and the place started, everybody was kind of leaving, and we were kind of hanging around, and all the Blue Jackets started to come in. So we're like, oh, great. And, there's a couple guys there that know Billy just because he's Billy. And so they come over. And so they had a room in the back. So they all go back. And, I look at Billy. I'm like, you think we should tell him in person? And he goes, yeah, that would be a great idea. So it was kind of both our ideas. But anyways, I just thought, I'm like, you're only going to get to call everybody else. So I'm like, it'd be kind of cool. So he sends the waitress back or waiter and says, can you get Zach Werenski and his fiance to come out here? So they came out, and Billy and his, he said, oh, sorry, I just wanted to come out here because I forgot my wallet. I was hoping you could pick up the tab. And his fiance right away goes, if he's on Team USA. And so Billy's like, well, then I guess you're picking up the tab. And I mean, just to see his reaction and his fiance's reaction, in person, like it means so much to these guys. Like he was like, I've been thinking about this all season.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? Like he's like he was so excited, but it was almost like a sigh of relief. Like he was like, it's just unbelievable. It's going to be great. And it was really cool. It was a good story. It was fun to be able to see his reaction and tell him in person.
And he, as you know, Chris, he probably played his way onto the team. I mean, for the most part, a lot of these guys had the inside tracks. You knew some of the guys were going to be on there, even if they weren't part of the six last June. But he had to prove himself. Him and Hannafin and guys like Matt Boldy. I mean, they had to play their way on here.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And you know what? They did. Like that. I mean, those guys were all in the big pool of names that we had, and they just like if we didn't take Zach Werenski, like he's arguably playing the best out of the defensemen we took this season.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, he showed us like, hey, I want to be on this team, and I'm going to show you why, and he did it. And like Bold.
Oh, you there, Chris?
Guy.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah. Did I break up?
Yeah, you did, but we got you again.
Okay, yeah. I mean, all those guys, again, I think it's so nice for us that they played their way on. It made our decisions easier with those guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, February 12th to the 21st is the tournament in both Montreal and Boston. We'll call it a 2026 Winter Olympics appetizer, which I'm excited to cover, and also cover the Four Nations. This is Michael Russo from The Athletic. We're talking with Chris Kelleher, the Wild assistant general manager. And you just came back from Des Moines, where you spent some time there watching the Iowa Wild. They're starting to play really well. And I know I get a lot of tweets on an everyday basis asking for updates on how David Jiricek is playing. When we could see him in the Minnesota lineup right away. Obviously, make the big trade. You give up a lot to get him. But as Billy said that night of the trade, this is not necessarily just for the now. This is an investment into the future. And the big thing is to get his game going right. And so how is he playing down there?
He's playing well. He's getting acclimated to our we play obviously a different system, a different structure from Columbus. So I think he's starting to learn that and starting to understand how we want to play. I think it was great that when we first traded him, we had him in for like a week, I think, maybe.
Yep.
So he was around the coaches. He practiced under John Hines' practices and around our NHL guys. So he sees what we do and how we do it, and he got familiar with the trainers, everything. So I think that was a huge thing for him. And now he's just got to go down and play. Like, he's a really talented player. I think there's times where he's probably trying to justify the trade in one shift, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Like maybe he's trying to do a little too much right now, but that's okay. Like, you don't want to take away his skills or creativity or any of that. But he's doing well. Here, he's younger than a lot of the guys we have down there. So he's coming along, and it's an investment. It's not a here and now thing. We don't really need him right now, so I think it's great. He's down there and playing a ton of minutes.
Does he understand that? Is he willing to be patient? Because obviously, a lot of the scuttlebutt out of Columbus is that he wanted to not only play, but play top 4 minutes, right? Top 4 defense pair minutes right off the hop in Columbus. Wasn't exactly enthralled by being sent to Cleveland. Does he get that this is a new organization that has different expectations, and that Bill Guerin's way is that guys have to go down to and pay their dues and be ready to step in and be impactful once they get here? We saw it with Rossi, we saw it with Boldy, and now we might see it with Jiricek.
Yeah, I think he does. I know Billy had a long conversation with him about the plan, and listen, we didn't give up all that we gave up to just, to not like make sure it does. We're doing the right thing by you, and he understands that. He knows he's down there to play. He's down there to learn our structure, our system, and get better. Like he said, he just turned 21. Like, defensemen take longer, and bigger defensemen take a little bit longer to develop and get there. Like, and again, we don't want to bring him up and then, until he's ready. So I think he's definitely on board with the plan. And again, you've seen it with Boldy, you've seen it with Rossi. Sometimes it's okay to let them marinate down in the American League for a little bit longer.
Yeah,
there's no rush, and fortunately enough, right now we're playing good enough where we don't really need him.
Right, and everybody's not Brock Faber. I mean, he's a special player, obviously, to step in right from college and be as impactful as he is.
Those guys are few and far between, right?
Yep.
Like, again, there's there's not too many of those guys.
Yeah. Speaking of, guys that are few and far between, Zev Williams had an unbelievable year at University of Denver again. He fell right into your lap at the draft. Now he's going to World Juniors. How excited are you for him? And same thing with him. I mean, even if you sign him after this season, I mean, this is, again, not everybody's Brock Faber. I mean, he might step in right away, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's not going to be in Iowa at times in the future. How excited is the organization about Zev?
Really excited. I went to see him last weekend. I went to Colorado College. Denver was playing there, and he's a really talented guy. Like, he's a lot different than kind of what we have as far as he's really offensive. He's got great feet, great on the power play, and I think he's 6 foot. But he's strong. He's sturdy. Like, he's really, really competitive. Like, that's what when I left that game. Never mind all his puck skills and offense and like what he can do that way because it's elite. His competitiveness down low in the D zone from last year when I saw him to now, it's unbelievable.
Awesome.
He's a really, really competitive, really talented. I think eventually when he gets to us, our fans are going to love him and be excited about him because he's little.
We're talking with Chris Kelleher, the Wild assistant general manager. And Chris, Liam Ogren's had 10 goals in 14 games down in Iowa. You just watched him as well. This is something that we didn't really get to see him in that type of role in Minnesota. And even when he did, we didn't see him that aggressive. Do you feel like this is the best place for him right now and he's just got to continue to really play this way and then eventually you'll need him and bring him up here rather than a lot of the AHL depth guys that you signed this offseason?
Yeah. I think you said it before. We want to bring him up when he's ready to stay up here full time. We don't need a young kid going up and down and playing that, kind of yo-yo and, not sure when he comes up, he's nervous, not trying to do much. Just leave him down, let him play. He's scoring goals. He's doing well. We want when we call him up next, hopefully that's the end of it. And he's ready. So that's kind of what our plan is with him, and he's playing really well. So.
And lastly, Chris, you talked about this the other day on a podcast, and I love this story about your one NHL game. I've joked with you before. I really want to go through almost the Wild media guide and talk to the Tyler Kumas in the world that played that one game of their memories. And you played one game for the 2001-2 Boston Bruins, your hometown Bruins, at Joe Louis Arena. No, it was at TD Garden against the Red Wings, right?
Yeah.
So, just tell fans about that story, about your memories of one NHL game and how you actually feel that's a great rite of passage, that you didn't get 3 or 4, that one is kind of the cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely wanted a lot more than one, but I feel like, and I'll tell the story after, but I feel like if one is a little bit more unique than, say, 2 or 3, right? So I was playing in Providence at the time, and my coach, Bill Armstrong, who's the Utah GM
see him
now,
tonight.
Called me and told me that I was going to go play the afternoon up in Boston against Detroit, and it was a Saturday afternoon game. I think it was like on NBC, or it was the game of the week or whatever it was, and so I just jumped in my car right away and driving up to Boston and calling my parents and my brothers and everybody, and and it happened to be on my dad's birthday. So, that was pretty unique too. And, like I say before, my brothers can never top that birthday present. So I always win there. But so we get up there and I get up there like 3 hours early because I'm just so excited. And then, get up there, get in the locker room and nobody's there. Like the trainers and everybody there, but no players. So, so then I start getting nervous and I start looking at the roster on the board. I'm like, oh boy, the Red Wings, like Fedorov, Hull, Yzerman, Lidstrom, Zetterberg, Datsuk, Chris Draper, like all these guys. And I'm like, there is no way I could do this. And I remember, I think it was Hal Gill came in and he goes, oh, congratulations, this is awesome. He goes, I've been nervous for this game all year. And I'm like, oh, man. So then it just gets worse, right? And, Billy Guerin's on the team. I think he was his assistant captain. And I remember Robbie Fatorik before the game. he's going through the roster and he's saying how great they are and this guy's great and this and that. And Billy just stopped him. He said, "Hey, they put their skates on the same way we do. Let's go out there and beat them in a nicer way, or maybe not so nice way." But anyways, so then we went out. I played like 12 minutes, and I remember I had a shift that was like I got stuck out on a shift, and I was battling Thomas Holmstrom in the front of the net, which was pretty hard to do. And I watched the game after. I know Bill Clement said, "Well, it's his first game, and he's trying to make a career out of this shift." So, but it was a really exciting day, and everything was great. And, and then I had to go back down to Providence and play the next day on a Sunday.
Yeah,
so that was the end of it. But
I love the part of the story where
cool.
you said you quickly dressed and tried to get out of there because you figured if they can't find you, they can't send you down.
I tried, but it didn't work. It didn't work. Robbie Fettori got me. Yeah. So I didn't make it out. But
isn't it crazy Isn't it crazy when you think about it? Like you're thinking 23 years ago, and you're a teammate with Bill Guerin, and now now you work for him, and your head coach is John Hines, who's on your college team. You're on the same USA Hockey staff with your college roommate and Chris Drury. You got Mike Greer over in San Jose, having the best young player in the league right now in Celebrini. I mean, it's pretty just a small hockey world, right?
Well, the hockey world is so small. Like somebody who knows somebody. Like it's just. I was in Nashville last night watching a game, and one of my other roommates and college teammates is Jeff Kelty, who's the assistant GM in Nashville. And I saw him last night. So, and then I saw Colby Armstrong, who I played with, and it's just the hockey world is incredible, as you know, and it's a really small world and a tight knit group, and I really am. And you are too. We're fortunate to be a part of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. Well, hey, Chris, I really appreciate the time, especially after I know it's a holiday season. You just landed from Nashville as well. And so I really appreciate you coming on today.
Of course.
Yep.
Oh, anytime.
Yep.
Enjoy coming on.
Yep. And and you're going to get to, hopefully I'm not ruining a surprise, but you're going to get to have your family here for the Ottawa game, right?
Yeah. I'm going to bring my 4 kids, and my mother's coming too. So that'll be my mother and my son have seen games out there, but my 3 daughters haven't. So they kind of mentioned something to me beginning of the season, like, well, how come we've never been to Minnesota? And I'm like, no, that's a good point. So I'm really excited.
You've only worked for the organization for 17 years. You've only worked here for 17 years. You'd think you'd get them tickets once.
I know. You sound like one of my daughters, Michael.
So, well, hey, Chris, appreciate it, and we'll see you right after the break.
Okay, sounds good, Mike. Thanks. Have a great Christmas, buddy.
Yep, you too.